Hello, subscribers and future subscribers. Dmitry, the coach here. So, big egos, weak egos. I was watching a YouTube channel the other day, one of those programs where they interview guests, different kinds of experts on their channel. So, there was a host interviewing a guest on that show. She asks a question, the guest starts answering it, and then apparently the host decides she also has an answer, perhaps a more interesting one even than the the expert's answer. So she starts talking over the guest's voice, answering her own question without letting him finish. What was the urgency? I'm not sure. I have no idea. But meanwhile, the guest keeps talking, raising his own voice, trying to drown out the host, and she's not giving up. She in turn starts talking louder, and they keep going on with that shouting match. You get the picture. So this screaming went on for a while. In fact, I just couldn't take it anymore. At some point, I just closed the window and went on to do something else, watch another program. And I almost never leave comments under videos. However, this time I did leave a comment. I just asked a simple question. You invited this person to your show and you asked a question. Why not just let this person, this guest, this expert finish the answer and then make your own comments? Why not let him finish? So, speaking of the comments, leave yours under this video. Why do you think people act like this sometimes? I'll share my explanation in a moment. But before we continue, remember to like and subscribe. You can subscribe here on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching. Also subscribe to the newsletter so I keep you posted of the new videos and other announcements. And with that, so what possibly led to that screaming match on the YouTube channel I just told you about? Well, my answer is ego. And not just any ego, a weak one, which resulted in a needy behavior. Why? Because a weak ego feels it's lacking something. Actually, a lot of things. Lacking recognition, a sense of self-importance, security, self-confidence, and who knows what else. So what's the result of that? For example, in my example, perhaps the host of the show thought her own opinion was so great that it had to be shared with the world right away. But why so urgently? Maybe you need to prove to herself and everyone else that she is not chopped liver and she also knows something. Of course, she could have waited for the guest to finish, but needy behavior can be triggered, and once it's triggered, it's uncontrollable. It's a reaction, not a response. I'll expand on that in a moment. Also share what you think in your comments below. And what is ego anyway? Well, this is not a psychology channel or, heaven forbid, a psychoanalysis channel. So let's just say ego is the part of us responsible for interfacing with the outside world. It handles our sense of identity, self-esteem, status in the world, our place on the totem pole, things of that nature. And what is big ego? It's commonly understood as an exaggerated sense of pride and self-importance, with all the repercussions. And today I'll try to show you that those are actually the signs of weakness. And some of you may say, duh, Captain Obvious, we all know that already. My goal is to show where it comes from the energetic self-perception point of view, how you can limit your own, how it can limit your own ability to accomplish goals, and also what can be done about it. So let's take a look at this energetic self-perception chart. And you may ask, why are you referring to this chart in your videos? Well, because it's the foundation of the coaching system that I practice. It brings clarity to understanding the way you experience the world around you, and understanding what's going on. Also, I got another comment after my last week's video that this chart, when it's shown on the screen, is hard to read. And sure it is. The thing is, I show it on the screen just to orient you, to give you an idea what I'm talking about. If you're interested in studying it in detail, you can go to my website, Dmitry the Coach, under assessments, right here. And the first one is Energy Leadership Index. And from there, you can download the chart. You can even print it. And then you can you should be able to see every word that's on the chart. Also, if you are watching this as a recording rather than a live video, you can pause here, go to the website, meet the coach, and download the chart, and then we can continue. So now you've got the chart. Why not take it a step further? Actually, a huge step further. Take the ELI assessment. It'll show you exactly where you are on this chart, what different levels of energy and perspectives you are experiencing throughout the day, how different they are when you are just being your usual happy-go-lucky, and how much it changes when you're under stress. For example, when you are in a rush to get to work on time and somebody cuts you off, or when your boss chews you out. And with the ELI assessment, first you fill out the questionnaire for about 30 minutes. And then there is a debriefing session with the coach where you learn exactly how the chart applies to you and how the results affect your life, and where you can identify opportunities for growth. And like a personality test, which is like a life sentence, because they say our personalities don't change much throughout life, the ELI assessment measures your current attitudes and perceptions. Nothing is set in stone. After a certain amount of work on yourself, you can retake it and see how everything has shifted. And the research shows that even the smallest shift in your ELI results usually correlates with major changes in your life, such as more success and more life satisfaction. And now let's go back to the chart, to the practical application. So the inner ring, the darkest one, it represents catabolic energy levels 1 and 2. And you can also see that on the left hand side, it says ego. The next ring says strong ego, and the inner one says just ego. Well, why don't we call it less than strong ego? Someone experiencing those catabolic levels typically lives in the world of perceived scarcity. And remember, this is a perception chart. It's the way someone is experiencing the world. The truth can be quite different from what's true for that particular person. One can have $1 billion and still feel lacking money. One can be surrounded by a loving family and still feel lonely and abandoned, or one can be a YouTube host with a million subscribers and still not feeling recognized enough and overshadowed by her own guest. It's all about perception. So, a person in that state of mind, constantly lacking something in particular, or lots of things, or everything, feeling he or she is always getting the short end of the stick, chasing illusory items that are supposed to feel that perceived lack, is kind of locked in that state of mind. It's common to experience low self esteem and seek validation and approval of others, or just seek attention. All that can result in needy behavior. And if you watch the language of that person, chances are it's the language of scarcity and powerlessness. Even if that person is in a powerful position, we all do that sometimes. So if you ever use yourself or hear people say things like, oh, we have to do this, I must do this, I have to pick up groceries, or I don't have enough money, we are lacking time, or I don't know how to do this, or in business, we need to beat the competition, or in the dating world, a good man or woman is hard to find. And because energy attracts like energy, such a person can be forever stuck in catch 22, attract nothing but scarcity. And people stuck in that catabolic energy attract others who resonate on the same frequencies. They may enter relationships just to avoid loneliness, get a job they don't like just because they have to pay the bills, and they're afraid to be hungry and homeless. People also become victims or perpetrators when they are in that catabolic energy. And by the way, even though a victim and the perpetrator seem to fill the opposite roles, they share the same energy, and eventually they inevitably find each other. Also, needy behavior due to weak ego can repel those who themselves experience a higher level of consciousness. For example, dating gurus advise against acting needy and desperate because it dramatically decreases the chances of finding a mentally stable partner. And they are right. However, it's much more effective to stop being needy and desperate rather than trying to stop acting needy and desperate. And the same goes for business relationships. If you feel needy and desperate for contract or client or customer, chances are you'll either lose that lead or the opportunity, or you end up with very unfavorable items. Unfavorable conditions of the deal to you, of course. Another thing is the need to be right. That's another sign of catabolic energy and the weak ego. I think a lot of road rage and car accidents are caused exactly by that, by the need to be right. So at the moment, the driver's emotional need to be right is so overwhelming, it outweighs all the inconvenience and risking life and limb by getting into an accident. Even if the driver turns out to be right, according to the police report afterwards, was it worth it? But they are not thinking at the moment, they are reacting because they are not controlling the situation and themselves. They are not making rational choices. And that's a sure sign of weak ego. Also, think of the "I told you so" people. How does scolding and lecturing someone after the fact help? It only helps one with the ego full of holes, needing to feel superior. And speaking of superiority, or rather, what is big ego? That's just an attempt to overcompensate. Have you ever heard of superiority complex? Here is a quote from WebMD. A superiority complex is a belief that your abilities or accomplishments are somehow dramatically better than other people's. People with a superiority complex may be condescending, smug, or mean to other people who don't agree with them. End of quote. How many people do you personally know who fit the definition? And here is what Freud thought. He viewed the superiority complex as a way to compensate or overcompensate for those areas in which someone is lacking or failing. The bigger the ego, the needier and more insecure is the person behind it. And it's an open invitation for manipulators through flattery. Here's another quote. A man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. If you want help with the interpretation of this quote, bring it up in your next Bible studies class. So, is escape from the weak ego possible? Are there any tips for ego strengthening and neediness reduction? The answer to the first question is a big yes. Of course, it's possible. The rest of the energetic self perception chart is exactly the space where you expand your consciousness and your choices. The next ring is self mastery. So you can take a look at the chart that you have by now. And self mastery is characterized by a strong ego. It's called the circle of awareness. And the outermost circle, the circle of self transcendence, shows that there is no ego at all. You move past that in your awareness. As for the tips, there are none. Shocking, isn't it? And let me tell you, coaching is not about giving tips, believe it or not. Shocked again? Probably it's not what you've heard so far, given the amount of bombardment we all get on social media and email from all sorts of gurus and coaches teaching us how to live our lives. 10 steps toward this, 5 rules of that, inspirational quotes and memes. However, if you want long term results, you'll have to figure it all out for yourself. A coach may share what's worked for others, but it's up to you to decide if it's right for you personally. So, in closing, I'd like to share what has worked for others. And it's not a tip, it's raising awareness. So, here it is. Minding your language can be a major step toward getting rid of the scarcity mode and starting to attract abundance. You can even keep a journal where you write down and become aware of your own language of scarcity. So we started with needy behavior and big weak ego, and now we are ending up with minding our own language of scarcity. Does it make sense? To me, it does, because that's a way of moving from scarcity and the catabolic energy toward the mindset of abundance and anabolic energy. A weak ego with its needy behavior and its overcompensating offspring, such as a big ego and superiority complex, come from the scarcity mindset. And that, in part at least, is reinforced by the language we use. Our word choices program our subconscious mind in a certain way. Or if you want to be more metaphysical about it, it sends the message to the universe. Our language attracts a certain type of energy, and because like attracts like, that leads to quite predictable outcomes. Watch what you say and how you say it, and your consciousness will shift. I have an article on the powerlessness and power and powerlessness of the words we use on my website, Dmitry the Coach. So check it out. And with that, like and subscribe if you find this talk useful. Share it with your friends, with your family, with your boss. And with that, thank you for watching. And I'll see you next week.